Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a place no one really plans to visit. You know, like that one public restroom in the middle of nowhere. It's dark, smells like regret, and there's always something sticky. But unlike that bathroom stall, this place isn't just unsettling, it's eternal. We're descending into the underworld tonight. Not as a hero, not as a villain, just you. A quiet witness, a heartbeat floating in the dark. And honestly, you're probably not going to survive this. But don't worry, at least you'll learn something. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love knowing which part of the world is listening in the dark with us. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step onto the path, stone beneath your feet cold as guilt, the air thick like old paint water. There's no echo when you walk, no sound from your breath. It's like the air here was never meant for lungs. The gate stands before you, no welcome sign, no light, no warning. Just a giant frame of black stone standing in a space that feels like someone else's memory. You've probably seen it in a video game once, or on some myth TikTok, but this time, it's real, you're here, and your first thought is, there's no back button, is there? You're not sure how you got here, dead, not quite, dreaming, maybe. All you know is you're present, and the gate? It's cracked open, just slightly. Just enough to whisper, "I've been expecting you." No guards, but something watches, not evil, not warm, just observant, like someone waiting to see which shoe you'll tie first. You step through. The air shifts like walking into the deep end of a pool made of velvet and radio silence. Ahead, the road splits in three. One path smells like wilted jasmine. Another is fogged up like a webcam from 2007. And the center, pitch black, no stones, just a void stretching down like a throat that hasn't spoken in centuries. So obviously you take the middle path, because you're that kind of listener. As you walk deeper, silence becomes a texture. Not peaceful, just loaded. You hear your own heartbeat outside your body. This silence could be sliced into sandwiches and served with a mild sense of dread. And then you see him, Hades. He doesn't sit on a throne. He stands, tall, still, draped in shadows like someone wearing midnight as a hoodie. His hair doesn't move, but somehow you feel like it could. His eyes don't glow, but somehow you see more clearly when he looks at you. You've arrived. Not a question, just a notification. Like, your order is out for delivery, but existential. You want to say something, but your tongue sticks to your teeth like old gum under a high school desk. Hades takes a step. No sound. But the dust under his feet floats up and takes a strangely long time to fall. Like even time pauses when he moves. He doesn't reach out, doesn't greet you. No need. Nobody comes here to shake hands. He stares, long enough for you to start wondering if you remembered to wear pants. And then he speaks again, voice soft and steady, like background jazz in a very classy funeral. You're not dead, not alive, just slipped. You think, slipped where? But he's already turned around. And, naturally, you follow him. Because yeah, of course you do. You've passed the gate no one returns from. Why stop now? You walk down a corridor where the fire doesn't burn, yet you feel heat. You pass a room where eyeless spirits seem to look at you. You descend a spiral staircase with no visible end. And somewhere in that descent, you realize this isn't a prison. It's not a punishment. This is rest. This is where the soul goes when the world finally says, "You've done enough." No one cries here. no one laughs. But everything is still. So still, you start to hear truths you didn't even know had a voice. And Hades? He doesn't ask for respect. He is respect. Quiet, sharp, still as judgment. Like that one teacher who never yelled but somehow scared the chaos out of you with just one eyebrow raise. You walk a little farther, and when you look back, the gate is gone. Not closed, not slammed shut, just no longer there. Welcome to the realm no one volunteers for. But once you're in, you find pieces of yourself here that you didn't even know were missing. And you're just getting started. The thing no one tells you about gods is they argue like siblings over pizza, but with way more lightning. You follow Hades down the silent stone halls, his footsteps making no sound, and yet every one of yours echoes like you've got tap shoes on in a museum. You try not to trip. Not from fear, but out of pure social anxiety, because walking next to a god feels a bit like texting with your boss and accidentally liking their vacation selfie from 2014. Eventually, you reach a chamber. It isn't grand. Not Olympus grand. It's older than that. Rough stone, scorched marks, ancient dust. And in the middle, a stone table shaped like a broken world map. Cracks still visible. Blood or maybe wine stained in the corners. He doesn't say it, but you feel it. This is where it all changed. Back then, long before mortals had Wi-Fi or shame, the sky was ruled by monsters, titans. Big, cruel, ancient. Like landlords who never left. But three brothers stood up. Zeus, thunder in a toga. Poseidon, the drama of a crashing wave with the emotional stability of a soggy sponge. And Hades, the one next to you, now quietest of them all, but also the one who knew where the bones were buried because he buried them. They fought. Oh, did they fight? Titanomachi was less a war and more a divine demolition derby. Mountains thrown like dodgeballs, oceans boiled, the sky cracked like a windshield under pressure. You didn't witness it, but somehow, standing here, you remember. You remember the feeling of a world being broken open like an egg, just so something better could crawl out. And when it was over, when the Titans were locked away in Tartarus, groaning behind unbreakable chains, the three brothers stood among the rubble and asked the question every group project fears. Okay, so now what? They needed to divide the world. One sky, one sea, one underworld. And three massive egos with daddy issues and trauma baked into their celestial bones. They didn't argue, not directly. Instead, they rolled dice. Yes, dice. Immortal, glowing, pulsing with cosmic power, but still dice. And maybe you laugh a little when you imagine it. Three eternal beings crouched around a rock, throwing dice like frat boys playing Dungeons and Deities. Zeus went first. Rolled high. Snatched the sky. Thunder, Olympus, the spotlight. Poseidon followed. Claimed the sea. Storms, earthquakes, all the fish, even the weird ones. And then Hades. He rolled last. And when his fingers left the die, it landed with the soft finality of a door closing behind you. The Underworld. Not hell, that's a mortal invention. This was more logistics. The afterlife needed a manager. And Hades, he was always the one who read the fine print. No one fought him for it. No one wanted it. Zeus looked away. Poseidon scratched his beard. Hades simply nodded like he knew all along this would be his. And the thing is, he didn't rage. He didn't stomp or curse or smite. He accepted. Because while the others were obsessed with the glory of being seen, Hades understood the power of being needed. People prayed to Zeus when they were desperate. to Poseidon when they were drowning. But everyone, eventually, ended up knocking on Hades' door. No matter how powerful, how beautiful, how fast you ran, sooner or later, your name slid into his book like a checkout slip at the world's quietest library. He didn't ask for worship. He built a system. He gave the dead a place to go, a process, a purpose. He didn't rule like a king. He organized like a god who color codes his eternity. And yet, even now, people flinch when they hear his name. You glance sideways at him now, walking just a step behind. He's not angry. Not ever. His presence is like a basement door you never open, but always know is there. He stops suddenly. There's a crack in the floor shaped exactly like the path of that dice. He doesn't look down, doesn't need to. You ever notice, he says softly, how chance only bothers you when you lose? You want to answer, but your words feel too loud in this place. He walks on, and you realize this entire realm was built not on cruelty, not on fire, not even on death. It was built on responsibility. The kind no one claps for. The kind no one volunteers for. The kind that holds everything else together when the flashy gods run off chasing nymphs and drama. And somehow, as strange as it is, you don't feel afraid of Hades anymore. You feel safe. In a place no one escapes, with a god who didn't ask to rule, but never once looked away. There's something strange about this throne. It's not elevated, not golden, not surrounded by whispering maidens with palm leaves and grapes. No spotlight, no choir, no ridiculous feathered peacocks that Zeus probably sends as gifts no one asked for. Noth's throne is carved from obsidian, unpolished, cold. It doesn't gleam. It absorbs. It's set deep in the stone, almost lower than the rest of the floor, like it's trying not to be noticed. And you know what the wildest part is? No one's sitting in it. You blink, look around, and for a second you actually think, did he forget where his throne is? But no, Hades knows exactly where it is. He just walks right past it. Because this throne wasn't made for comfort, it was made for presence. And Hades, he never needed furniture to feel powerful. He doesn't need to sit, he's already seated in every shadow. You look at it more closely now, this empty throne in the middle of the Underworld's great hall. You expect it to be dripping with skulls. Instead, it's quiet, simple, functional. Like the office chair of a CEO who reads every line of every contract and never once raises his voice on a Zoom call. And that's when it hits you Hades didn't design his realm for intimidation. He designed it to function. Every hallway here leads somewhere. Every corridor is part of a system. Spirits line up, they wait, they move, they settle. There are no fire pits, no torture racks, no eternal screaming in the background. That's mortal nonsense. Dante didn't write this place, Hades did. The Underworld is a library, not a prison. It's where every soul gets catalogued, processed, stored. A realm of memory, of consequence, of stillness. And at the center, a throne that almost no one ever looks directly at. You think of Olympus, of Zeus's throne made of lightning and ego, of Poseidon's salt-encrusted monstrosity adorned with coral and shark teeth. And then there's this. It feels more human. And maybe that's the most terrifying part. Because what god humbles himself to sit lower than everyone else? What god chooses silence over spectacle? You take a tentative step closer, and in that moment you feel a pull gentle but absolute. Not toward danger, toward order, like gravity. But for morality, you reach out. Not to touch the throne, of course not. You're not that reckless, just to feel it. But before you can, a voice. Wouldn't recommend it. It's Hades, right behind you now. I had it measured to my posture. Sit on it wrong and your spine might remember something your mind doesn't want to. He's smirking. A god. Smirking. Like he just made a dad joke about eternal damnation. And weirdly you laugh. Because somehow that was funny. He walks past you again. Never even looks at the throne. It's not the chair that gives the power, he says. It's knowing when not to use it. You follow him again because what else are you going to do? And as you move, you pass more thrones. Not real, ones metaphorical ones. Places where power could be claimed. Where cruelty could be applied. Where vengeance could be taken. But they're all empty. Because Hades isn't here to take. He's here to maintain. And honestly, that's so much harder. You think of all the times someone misunderstood you. All the times people called you cold just because you weren't loud. All the times you carried things quietly because someone had to. You think, maybe Hades gets it? Maybe he's not the villain. Maybe he's the one who stayed behind to clean up after all the gods threw their tantrums and left. And maybe that throne empty, dark, overlooked isn't just his. Maybe it's for everyone who's ever chosen duty over drama, stability over spotlight, stillness over shouting. You walk on, and though the throne stays behind, something about it stays with you. A weight, a dignity, a whisper that says, you don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to last. Let's get something straight. Spring wasn't stolen. She was taken. But not in the Taken movie way where Liam Neeson whispers threats through a phone. More like, the earth paused, the flowers blinked, and suddenly warmth disappeared like someone unplugged the season. And you were there. Of course you were. Not as a hero. Not as a rescuer. Just present. Like a cloud that accidentally drifts into a thunderstorm and decides to watch how it plays out. Persephone was dancing, that's how it started. She always danced like she was holding up the whole sky with her laughter. Hair wild, feet bare, skirt brushing the tops of wheat fields. She laughed like someone who didn't know what grief tasted like. Yet, you saw her pick the flower. That one. It wasn't just any flower. It bloomed from nowhere, fragrant like memories you can't quite name. Too bright, too alone, too deliberate. She bent down to touch it, and the ground broke open like it had been holding its breath for centuries. And from the crack, a chariot of shadows, horses with manes of smoke, and Hades, cloaked in stillness, rising from the depths like a secret the earth had been hiding. He didn't speak, didn't plead, didn't roar. He reached, and Persephone vanished. Not screaming, not fighting, just gone. Spring collapsed. Birdsong fell silent mid-note. Petals browned before they even bloomed. The whole world sighed into a half-death. And you just stood there. Because what can you possibly do when the god of the dead makes a choice? For weeks the earth grieved. Demeter, Persephone's mother, goddess of grain and growth. She screamed until the trees withered. She wept until the rivers reversed. She cursed Olympus, ignored Zeus, threatened to starve every mortal until someone did something. But Olympus is good at pretending not to hear women in pain, especially when the pain is inconvenient. Zeus finally gave in because famine was bad PR. And so Hermes was sent, the messenger, the fast-talking, sandal-wearing intern of the gods. He zipped down to the underworld like a divine Amazon Prime delivery. "Excuse me, sir, we need the girl back. PR crisis upstairs, thanks." But by the time Hermes arrived, Persephone had changed. She hadn't just stayed in the underworld. She had adapted to it. Her voice lowered, her hands steadied, and when she sat beside Hades, not beneath him, not behind him, but beside the shadows, no longer clung to her like fear. They bowed like servants, because she had eaten it. The pomegranate. 6 seeds, and every seed was a choice. Maybe she was tricked. Maybe she was hungry. Maybe she was just curious. Either way, the rule was clear. Eat of the dead, and you belong among them. Zeus predictably panicked. Hades didn't blink. Demeter threatened to burn Olympus to the ground. And so, a compromise was carved. Persephone would rise. For half the year, to bring spring, color, birdsong, dance. And for the other half, she would descend. To reign, not as prisoner, but as queen. That's how you first saw her again. Not as the meadow child, but as the one who walks through shadows and commands them. She passed you once. Her steps echoed without sound. Her eyes were no longer searching the sky. They were weighing you. Not cruel, just sharp. Like someone who had loved light and now understood darkness. And Hades? He never apologized, because what he did wasn't theft. It was recognition. He saw something no one else did. That Persephone wasn't just spring. She was cycles. Bloom and decay. Birth and rest. Life and after. He didn't just take a goddess. He invited her to become something more. You look at them now, seated side by side. Hades, the stillness of endings. Persephone, the pulse of return. And in a way that defies every myth, every moral, every mortal expectation. They make sense, not as a romance, but as a balance. He holds the silence. She brings the bloom, and together, they keep the world turning. There's no music, no applause, no over-the-top best man speech where someone drinks too much nectar and says bro one too many times. This wedding? It's not a party, it's a promise. And you're seated somewhere near the back because, let's be honest, you're not exactly on the guest list. But no one notices. Or maybe they do and just don't care. The Underworld doesn't do RSVPs. It does roles. And tonight, everyone plays theirs. The hall is massive, cold, still. Not decorated with roses or lace, but with pillars of stone veined with silver. Lamps flicker with blue fire that doesn't warm, only glows. There are guests, yesperates, shades, gods you'd rather not make eye contact with. But no one is smiling. And somehow, that makes sense. Because this isn't a wedding for mortals. It's not about joy. It's about alignment. At the center, Hades. Straight-backed, hands clasped, face unreadable. Like a statue someone forgot to carve the emotion into. And then Persephone. She walks down the long stone path, not with hesitation, but with decision. Her gown is dark as plum skin, embroidered with silver leaves that shimmer like frost. She doesn't carry flowers. She is the bloom in this world of bone. You half expect thunder, doves, maybe a drunken Apollo trying to flirt with the harpist. But there's none of that. Instead, a silence so deep it feels sacred. Hecate stands between them, triple-faced, half shadow, half flame. She doesn't speak in words, just a gesture, a binding, not of chains, of choice. Persephone takes Hades' hand, not like someone being led, but like someone reaching up to meet him level. And you think, wait, This isn't a rescue story. This isn't a kidnapping. This isn't a fairy tale with villains and white horses. This is something else. More complicated, more honest, more unmarketable. No mortals cheer. No confetti falls. But in the ceiling above them, a crack opens. And for the first time, light enters the underworld. Just a sliver. Just enough to catch in her hair. Just enough to reflect off his pale cheek. No one says I do. Because in the underworld, promises aren't spoken. They're carved. Afterward, there's a feast. But no one eats. Not really. It's more like presents. Cerberus curls at their feet. The dead gather in hushed clusters, whispering memories. No dancing, but the shadows shift ever so slightly, like even darkness is leaning in to witness this new shape of things. You catch Persephone's eye once, and she doesn't smile, but she nods, like she sees you, like she understands that you're still trying to decide if you're a guest or an intruder. And Hades? He doesn't look at you. He just sits beside his new queen, not proud, not smug, just steady, like the mountain that holds the storm without ever needing to explain why. You stay long after the others begin to drift into shadow. Something about this wedding lingers. Not like perfume, more like gravity. Because for the first time, you realize this union wasn't built on love. It was built on recognition. Two forces that understand the cost of what they carry. Two deities who no longer pretend to be what others want. Two halves of a system that most mortals will never thank, but always depend on. No one clapped, but everything changed. You hear the growl before you see him, but growl doesn't really cover it. It's more like a low thunder wrapped in teeth. A rumble that hums in your bones and makes your brain politely suggest, let's turn around. Too late. Cerberus is already here. 3 heads. 3 sets of eyes. One job, do not let the dead leave. You freeze. Because how do you act casual in front of a creature that could chew through you like you're a chew toy dipped in barbecue sauce? Each head watches you differently. One growls, one sniffs, and the third just stares. Like it's the one that reads. You take a tiny step back, but a voice calls out behind you, calm, dry, vaguely amused. He doesn't like hesitation, makes him think you're hiding something. It's Hades. Of course. Again. Always. He steps beside you, drops to one knee and reaches into a small pouch. Pulls out a cake. Not just any cake. Honey cake? Round, soft, slightly golden. Looks wildly out of place down here, like a bedtime snack left behind in a haunted house. He tosses it gently, underhand, like a dad feeding ducks. The middle head catches it mid-air. Chews. Licks its snout. The growling stops. The tail, right? There's a tail too, don't forget the part wags once. The sniffing head sighs. And the reading one? It closes its eyes. Cerberus sits. All 3 heads. See? Hades says, never underestimate the power of dessert diplomacy. You blink. Wait, you trained the guardian of the underworld with pastries? Number, that would be absurd. A pause. I also used classical conditioning, tone control, and guilt. He's smiling. Hades is smiling. It's barely there, like a wrinkle in marble, but it's real. Cerberus curls back into his post at the main gate, like a fuzzy bouncer at a very exclusive, extremely dead nightclub. And you realize something. He's not just a monster. He's a symbol. 3 heads. 3 states of being. What was? What is? What will be? He watches all of it. He guards not against escape, but interruption. Because the underworld isn't a prison, it's a system. One that only works if you let it. Cerberus doesn't punish. He prevents panic. He calms the dead. He stops the living from barging in with unfinished business and dramatic monologues. And he's loyal. Fiercely. Not because of magic or chains, but because Hades quiet, steady, severe Hades never gave him a reason to doubt. You look at the god again. He likes honey, you ask? He likes routine, Hades replies. Then he tilts his head slightly, which, to be fair, is what most of existence is built on. You think of your own routines. Coffee, doom scrolling, wondering if you've disappointed the universe yet again. And somehow, in that moment, the act of feeding a three-headed death hound with a honey cake feels grounding. Like maybe you could survive down here. Not as a hero. Not as a soul. But as something in between. Something that respects structure, silence, and snacks. Cerberus watches you one last time before resting his heads on crossed paws. All three breathing in sync. Like a lullaby built from old growls. And Hades? Already walking away. Come on, he says. He only gets one cake a day, and you don't want to be standing next to him when he realizes that. You follow. Of course you do. Because in a world of bones and shadows, the scariest thing isn't the three-headed beast. It's realizing you're starting to feel at home. There are names that echo in the underworld like half-remembered songs. And then there's Orpheus. That name doesn't echo. It rings. Not like a shout. More like a single piano note held too long in a quiet room. And every time it's remembered, the shadows pause, just slightly. You're walking with Hades when you feel it. That shift in the air. That sensation like a page being turned somewhere far away. He doesn't say his name. But you know, because the ground remembers his footsteps. Because the walls remember his music. This is where Orpheus came, not to die, but to bargain. And no one bargains with the dead, except him. You've probably heard the version they tell upstairs. The love story. The tragic romance. Boy plays lute, boy loses girl, boy walks into hell with a song and a hope and way too much confidence. But that version? It leaves out the blade. Yes, Orpheus came with music. But what they don't tell you is, he also came with a knife. Not to fight. Not to kill. But to cut through silence. Because that's what grief is, isn't it? A thick silence that wraps around your ribs and waits. Orpheus carved his way down through the layers of the world, not with steel but with sound. Each note a step, each chord a door. And the further he played, the more the underworld listened. Even Cerberus bowed his heads. Even the Furies wept. Even the dead stopped whispering and just felt. And at the center Hades. And Persephone. Sitting side by side, not moved, not fooled, but curious. You imagine that moment. A mortal. A musician. Standing before gods who do not weep. And playing something that makes even death pause. Hades looks at you now as if reading your thoughts. He didn't ask for power, he says. That's why I listened. Persephone had tilted her head that day. Orpheus had played the final note and said the only words that ever mattered. Let her go. Not please. Not if you would. Just a command made of grief. And the impossible happened. Hades agreed. Not because he was moved by the music, though he was. Not because he was afraid of love, he wasn't. But because he respects effort, he gave a condition. Walk. Don't look back. Trust. And for a while, It worked. You follow Hades now through the very path Orpheus walked, down corridors that remember his melody, past doorways where shades still hum his tune. And you feel it. Not just the music, the moment. When Orpheus reached the edge, when sunlight was just ahead, when Eurydice's footsteps whispered behind him like a ghost that wanted to be real again. And he turned. Of course he did. Because humans? We look back. That's our curse. And maybe our gift. He turned. And she vanished. Back into shadow. No scream. No goodbye. Just gone. And Orpheus? He didn't cry. He didn't rage. He just walked away. Silently. And the underworld has never forgotten him. Hades stops beside a wall etched with marks, not letters, not symbols. Just scratches made by fingers that were trying not to forget. Grief, he says quietly, isn't something you escape. It's something you carry until it reshapes you. You touch the wall. It's cold. And in that stillness, you almost hear the echo of a string being plucked. One note. Endless meaning. Orpheus left without his love. But he left something behind. Not a victory. Not a failure. A sound. A reminder that even in death, there are songs worth singing. You know that one guy at your office who's never late, never sick, never forgets a birthday, and probably has a spreadsheet for emotions? Now give him wings. A long black robe, eyes like faded ink, and a clipboard with your name on it. That's Thanatos. He doesn't float, he glides. Doesn't knock. Just appears. And let me be very clear, he is not death. Death is a concept. Thanatos is the administration. He's the one who shows up when your time is up, checks the list twice like a very spooky Santa, and escorts you from the land of Mondays to the land of forever. And guess what? He never misses a shift. You're walking through a corridor so quiet, even your heartbeat starts whispering. Then you see him. Thin, sharp, impossibly still. Like someone pressed the pause button on the concept of motion. And there he is sitting at a desk made of bone, sorting through parchment that writes itself. You approach. He doesn't look up. Form 17B, he mutters. Soul retrieval from false resurrection. Needs triple approval now, ever since that bard incident. You glance at Hades. He shrugs. He's been like this since before time had zones. Thanatos finally glances your way. No malice. No curiosity. Just assessment. You are a figure on a chart. A name on a list. A status. Breathing temporarily. He scribbles something. Still alive, borderline useful, watching closely. You try to act cool. Maybe flash a polite smile. He blinks once. There is no charm stat in death, he says. And somehow you feel rejected and existential all at once. Hades leans over to you. He's not trying to be cold, he just never warms up, not even once. Thanatos continues reviewing names. You notice some familiar ones. Some you wish were familiar. Some that haven't happened yet. And you realize, he doesn't just collect names. He processes timing, context, consequence. He's the reason no one dies early or late, only on time. And here's the kicker. He doesn't kill anyone. He waits. That's his job. When the candle burns low, he's the one who gently blows it out. He has no scythe. He prefers efficiency. No drama. Just files. And he doesn't care if you're a king, a beggar, or a part-time YouTuber with 3 followers. Everyone gets a line on his ledger. Nothing more, nothing less. You ask softly, "Do you ever rest?" He stops, looks at you for a long time, and replies, "I am rest." And just like that, you get it. Thanatos isn't a threat. He's a grace. A silence at the end of the sentence. Not a scream. A full stop. He hands Hades a scroll. Something about processing delays on the river Lethe and budget issues with Charon. And with Theid vanishes. No poof. No flash. Just not there anymore. You stand in the space he left behind. And it feels cleaner somehow. Tidier. Like a moment that's been properly filed. Hades turns to you. He's the most reliable presence in the cosmos, he says. Which is why no one invites him to parties. You smile just a little and walk on. Because now you understand. The Underworld isn't run by chaos. It's run by paperwork, by purpose. And behind the curtain of all your fears about death and darkness and finality, there's just a guy at a desk with a very long list, making sure everything ends exactly when it's supposed to. There are bad ideas. And then there are Greek hero bad ideas. Which is basically when 2 muscular, overconfident men decide that just because they've survived a few monster fights, they're suddenly qualified to waltz into the underworld like it's an Airbnb with flexible checkout. Enter Theseus and Pirithous. Best bros, big arms, bigger egos. Zero understanding of boundaries. You've probably heard of Theseus Minotaur guy, right? Maze, sword, some string, classic hero material. Pirithous, less famous, more chaotic. Basically the kind of friend who says, "Bro, you know what would be hilarious?" right before the cops show up. So what was the plan? Oh, just a casual kidnapping of Persephone, queen of the underworld. Yup. You're in the Hall of Stillness now, where the air feels extra heavy like it's holding in laughter that isn't friendly. And there, preserved like a divine inside joke, are 2 stone chairs. They don't look cursed. They just look uncomfortable. Like the kind of chairs you'd find in a government office waiting room that hasn't been updated since 300 BCE. But you know better, because this is where it happened. Theseus and Pirithous came swaggering down here in full hero mode. Swords, swagger, zero plans. They marched into Hades' throne room, didn't bow, didn't ask, just said, "We're here for Persephone. We think she'd make a great wife." And Hades? He smiled. And that's when you know you're in trouble. Because Hades doesn't smile unless something is already 5 steps into regret. "Oh," he said. "Of course, but first, let's play a game." He gestured to the 2 chairs. "Take a seat." And they did. Because of course they did. And they never stood up again. The chairs took them. Not violently. Not with chains. Just absorbed them. As if the stone had been waiting for exactly this kind of stupidity. Theseus, to his credit, figured it out immediately. He begged. He apologized. He swore eternal loyalty. He even offered up some of his better Instagram-worthy hero poses. Eventually, Hades allowed Heraclesius that Heraclesto drag him back. But even Heracles struggled. Legend says Theseus left behind part of himself. And honestly, probably his dignity too. But Pirithous never left. Still there. Still seated. Frozen in a moment of, "Bro, I have the best idea." And Hades? He didn't punish them out of rage. He didn't even scold them. He just let them sit. Because some mistakes don't need punishment. They are the punishment. You ask Hades now, why chairs? He looks amused. because nothing traps a man faster than his own arrogance. And nothing holds him tighter than comfort he thought he deserved. You stare at the chairs again. One empty, one not. And something about it hits deeper than you'd like. You wonder how many people trap themselves, not with chains, but with choices. How many sit still in their pride and call it destiny. You feel a chill knot from fear. From recognition, Hades places a hand on your shoulder. Not every descent is forced. Some people walk into the dark, thinking they'll take something, and end up leaving something behind instead. You nod and walk away. But as you go, you swear you hear a whisper behind you. Bro, wait, I've got another idea. You don't look back. Smart move. There are gardens. And then there's Persephone's. You're not sure how it works. You're in the middle of the underworld, where sunlight is a myth and nothing grows unless it's a metaphor. And yeah, there you are, standing at the edge of a place that breathes. It's not bright, but it glows. Softly, like moss under moonlight. Like a memory that refuses to fade. You step inside slowly because something about this place tells you to tread gently. Not out of fear, out of respect. The flowers aren't normal. They don't follow rules. There's a bush blooming with silver leaves that sound like wind chimes when touched. There's a vine growing up from the bone of a long-forgotten hero, sprouting glowing berries that smell like secrets. There's a tree with bark that hums faint lullabies in languages you don't recognize but your heart understands. This is where Persephone creates. While Hades manages the bones, she tends to the soul of the place. You see her now. Not in a throne. Not in armor. On her knees in the soil, bare hands deep in the earth, humming something half melody, half spell. She doesn't look up. She doesn't need to. This one's stubborn, she says, pressing 2 fingers against a small sprout. Doesn't want to bloom unless it's absolutely sure it's safe. She laughs, softly. Not like a goddess. Like someone who's learned to stop waiting for perfect conditions. You watch her work. No magic wand. No divine command. Just patience. Water. Time. She looks at you finally. Most people think death is a wall. But really, it's a root system. And you realize it isn't just visiting the underworld half the year. She's invested in it. Grown into it. This is her space. Her rhythm. Her refusal to let even the darkest soil go unused. You notice that nothing here is symmetrical. No tidy rows. No perfect flower beds. But everything is intentional. Wild, yes, but purposeful. And at the center of it all, a pomegranate tree. Small. Silent. But undeniably alive. You ask quietly, "Do you miss the sun?" She smiles. "Of course, but here, I matter. Up there, I was springtime. Here, I'm rebirth." And suddenly, you get it. This garden isn't about escape. It's not her clinging to the living world. It's her redefining what life can look like, even among the dead. Hades appears at the edge of the garden, watching her with a stillness that doesn't ask for attention. You look back and forth between them, and for the first time, you see it. Not love the way mortals write it, but a kind of deep alignment. She grows. He guards. She softens. He steadies. And together, they've created something that defies the old myths. Not a marriage of chains and shadows. A partnership. Persephone gently dusts the soil from her hands. Stands. Brushes past you with a basket full of strange petals and sharper herbs. As she passes, she says one thing. Don't believe the stories. The underworld isn't the end of life. It's where things learn how to begin again. And with that, she's gone. You look around one last time. A garden in the land of the dead, growing, changing, refusing to be defined by the rules above. And you start to feel something too. Not hope. Something older, more honest. A kind of stillness that says, you survived. Now grow. It's a strange day in the underworld. Too quiet. Too still. And not the usual everyone here is dead kind of still. This stillness feels unwatched. You notice it first when the shadows stop following you quite so closely. When the whispers fade. When the walls stop breathing like they always do between heartbeats. And then you realize Hades isn't here. Not in the throne room. Not beside Persephone. Not behind you making dry remarks about your posture. For once, he's taken a day off. You ask yourself, where does the god of the dead even go on vacation? Definitely not the beach. Hades seems like the type who'd wear a full black cloak to a pool party and judge the sunscreen. But no, turns out, he's on the surface. You catch up to him halfway through a forest clearing, dressed in something almost casual. Still dark, still regal, but looser. Less like he's about to rule your afterlife, and more like he might very briefly let his shoulders relax. He doesn't look at you, but he knows you're there. You ever notice, he says, how loud the living world is? And he's right. There are birds, insects, wind rustling through leaves. None of it structured, none of it quiet. It's chaos in 1,000 tiny directions. Hades walks through it like someone stepping into a dream he forgot he once had. He pauses beside a stream, watches the water move, not with longing, with recognition. This is why I let her return, he says. You don't need to ask who. You know, Persephone. She belongs to the green, he says, kneeling to run his fingers over wild grass. She blooms where things begin. And I watch where they end. You sit beside him, not because he asks, because it feels wrong not to. You've never seen him like this. No crown, no judgment. Just a man older than time watching sunlight flicker on water. And somehow, he doesn't look out of place. He looks like part of the story you forgot to read. The chapter between mourning and moving on. A deer steps into the clearing, sees him, pauses, and doesn't run. That's the real magic. Not fear, but recognition. Because even the wild things know, death isn't the enemy. It's the reason everything moves. Hades leans back just slightly, closes his eyes. You wonder if he's sleeping, but no, he's remembering. You feel it in the silence around him, in the way the leaves still, just to listen. Mortals fear me, he murmurs, because they think I take, but I don't. I hold. I keep. I remember. And you think about all the things you've lost. All the versions of yourself that slipped away while you weren't paying attention. Hades opens one eye and looks at you. Some things deserve to be let go, but the rest, they're safe with me. He stands, brushes the grass from his sleeves. The moment fades not like mist, but like music reaching its last note. Back to the underworld, back to duty. But for a second, you saw the man beneath the myth. Not the god who guards the dead, but the one who understands why we hold on. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the world still turns. There's a special kind of exhaustion that only siblings can summon in you. And when the sibling is Zeus, It's not just exhaustion. It's a full-body existential migraine. You're with Hades, back in the Underworld now. The garden has quieted. The air has cooled. And suddenly, there it is. A low thunderclap. Not real thunder, Olympus thunder. It rolls through the ceiling of the Underworld like a toddler banging pots together from 12 floors up. Hades doesn't flinch. But something in his jaw tightens. His eyes narrow like someone who just saw a group text light up with, "Hey, can you do me a huge favor?" You ask carefully, "Is that Zeus?" He doesn't answer, which means yes. Another boom. A golden shimmer forms in mid-eye obnoxiously bright, as if someone attached a floodlight to a peacock and told it to shout. And then the voice. "Ads, brother, dearest sibling of mine, you there?" You've never seen a god sigh with his entire soul until now. Hades closes his eyes for 2 seconds. Breathes in. Breathes out. Like a man trying to remember all the reasons why fratricide is frowned upon. The voice continues. "Listen, I hate to interrupt your brooding or whatever you do down there, but Olympus is hosting a thing. Minor god drama. We need like a judgment, signature, presence. You know how it is, divine politics." You glance at Hades. He hasn't moved. Still staring straight ahead. Still dead silent. But his face? It's the look of someone who's about to delete an email without reading it. While setting up a spam filter for everything from @olympus.gov, the floating shimmer flickers awkwardly. You almost feel bad for it. "I brought nectar cake," the voice tries again. "Nothing." "Fine, Persephone can come too. We'll put out olives." And then, click, the shimmer vanishes. Silence returns. And Hades mutters, with the calm of a man who has been dealing with this for eternity, "You give someone lightning once, and suddenly they think they're in charge of everything." You can't help it, you laugh. Because this is the most relatable moment of your whole descent so far. Hades sits down, not on his throne, but on a plain obsidian bench. He leans back, pinches the bridge of his nose. "Zeus loves a crowd," he says. He confuses applause with wisdom. You nod. "Yep, that tracks." "Poseidon's no better," he adds. "Sends me dream, messages made of sea foam. Half the time I'm not sure if it's a complaint or a haiku." You imagine the group chat between the three brothers. Zeus, party tonight, mandatory, dress divine. Poseidon, ocean vibes only utive. Hades, leaves, chat. But beneath the sarcasm, you hear it. Distance, not resentment. Just space, chosen space. Because while Zeus courts worship and Poseidon stirs tempests, Hades stays. Down here, in the dark, with order, with patience, with the dead. Not because he was banished, not because he's lesser, because someone had to hold the bottom of the world together, and none of the others had the stomach for it. You sit beside him. "Will you go?" you ask. He glances sideways. Eventually, after the theatrics die down, he smirks. "I found that the fewer words I say, the more powerful they think I am." And there it is again. That strange, steady brilliance. Hades doesn't shout, doesn't perform, doesn't decorate his existence with thunder and applause. He simply endures. And in that endurance, there is power the others will never understand. You sit with him for a while. Neither of you speak, and in that quiet, you begin to understand. Zeus may rule the skies, but Hades holds the weight of everything beneath, and he carries it without complaint, without thanks, without needing a single olive tray. They drift like mist, slow, silent, lost. You see them before you hear them, because they don't really make sound. They are sound, whispers stretched into shape, Footsteps without feet. Questions without mouths. These are the wandering souls. Not tortured. Not punished. Just unanchored. You walk through the corridor of the unplaced, where the underworld holds those who don't quite belong anywhere yet. Souls who died with too much left undone. Souls who don't know they're dead. Souls who cling to names they no longer remember how to spell. They pass through you like a chill. Not cold, just incomplete. Hades walks ahead, slower than usual, like even he doesn't want to disturb them too harshly. They're not broken, he says, just unfinished. You nod, and that's when you see her. A woman standing in place, unmoving. Her dress is from another century. Her hands are clasped. Her eyes scan the air like she's waiting for a train that never arrives. She doesn't see you. She's not supposed to. None of them are. You ask carefully what happens to them. And Hades, with the patience of a god who's been asked this 1,000 times, replies, they wait. For memory, for understanding, for permission. You're confused. Permission to move on? To let go, he corrects. Some souls want to stay, even if they don't know why. You glance around. A young man murmuring a name into nothing. An old warrior cradling a sword that isn't there. A child tracing shapes on the floor no one else can see. It's not horror. It's heartbreak. And Hades? He watches them all. Every single one. Not as a judge. Not even as a warden. But as a witness. It's easy, he says, to call me cruel for keeping them here. But I don't hold them. I wait with them. Until they're ready. You start to ask how long that takes. But stop. Because you already know the answer. As long as it needs to. A voice echoes behind you. Soft. Familiar. A name. Your name. You spin. But there's no one there. Just a flicker. A feeling. A shadow of something almost remembered. And suddenly, you get it. These souls aren't just waiting for death to end. They're waiting for their stories to make sense. For their endings to feel complete. And until then, they wander. Not in torment, but in search. Hades walks beside one spirit, gently adjusting something you can't see. A fold in memory, maybe. A knot in the thread. She was afraid of being forgotten, he murmurs. So I remember her for her. You stand in stillness, the ghosts drifting like slow tides. You feel no fear, only empathy. Because who among us hasn't felt unfinished? Who hasn't whispered into the dark, hoping someone, somewhere, still hears? And in this place, they do. Because here, in the deepest quiet, is a God who does not rush grief, who does not shame sadness, who simply says, take your time. And maybe that's the kindest thing any God has ever done. You've walked through chambers of silence, gardens that bloom without sun, halls filled with names, not noise. But this, and this is different. A door, heavy, blackened, carved not with symbols, but with absence. As if the wood itself forgot what it used to be. There's no handle, no keyhole, no lock that you can see. But you know, instinctively, this is the place no one talks about. Even in the underworld, secrets have weight. You glance at Hades. He's standing still, expression unreadable. And for once, he looks like he's thinking about not opening it, which only makes you want to know more. You ask, carefully, what's inside? He doesn't look at you. He just says, everything I never let go of. Then he raises one hand. Not dramatically, not with power, with permission. The door doesn't swing. It yields, like it's tired of being closed. And what's inside isn't what you expect. It's quiet, not empty, not dark, just still, like a bedroom no one slept in for centuries. Dustless, perfectly arranged. There are objects, small ones. A dried laurel crown, cracked with age. A child's drawing of a mountain, shaky and hopeful. A broken coin. A ring. None of them magical. None of them cursed. Just ordinary things. But in this room, they feel sacred. You walk slowly, not daring to breathe too loud. These belong to mortals, you whisper. Hades nods. They were moments. You look closer. A slip of parchment. A single sentence, faded. You lean in and read, "I forgive you." You feel it hit. Right in the chest. Not like an arrow. Like a hug you didn't know you needed. This room, it isn't a vault. It's a graveyard of memory. A museum of meaning. Hades kneels in front of a small, worn sandal. So small, it could fit in the palm of your hand. She waited for her parents, he says, voice barely audible. They never came, but she never blamed them. She just waited. You don't speak. What could you say? Because this room doesn't want words. It wants acknowledgement. You glance around and realize this is the one place in all the underworld where Hades lets himself feel. Not as a god, but as a keeper of stories too heavy to be forgotten, as a collector of all the little tragedies no one else thought to mourn. He doesn't cry. Gods don't cry. But there's something in the air now. A thickness, a pressure, as if even the room is holding its breath. You ask, why keep these? And he replies, because someone should. And you understand, this isn't about power. This isn't about death. It's about honor. About love that had no witnesses. Pain that had no language. Hope that had no audience. All stored here, where they can't be erased. Where they matter. You take one last look before stepping out. And as the door closes behind you, not with finality, but with care, you feel something shift in you, a realization. Sometimes the most sacred places aren't temples. They're locked rooms in quiet gods who carry what the world forgets. So the rest of us don't have to. You walk, or at least you think you do. The steps feel real. Stone beneath your feet. Air thick with the scent of ash and wild thyme. But the further you go, the less certain you become that walking is what's actually happening. Because something follows you. Not a creature. Not a god. Not a threat. A part of you. The part that paused in Persephone's garden. The part that sat beside Hades and saw silence not as emptiness but as integrity. The part that watched wandering souls searching for meaning and quietly whispered, "Same." You look back, not to see the gates they're gone, not to see Hadeshi's not following. What's there is you, or some version of you, the one who came in, the one who thought they were just visiting, the one who didn't understand that the underworld doesn't trap people. It keeps what they leave behind. You keep walking, and the shadows thin. The ceiling lifts. You smell pine, grass, sky. You're rising, like breath returning to lungs, like a body waking from a deep, strange sleep. And then, light, not soft glow, daylight, harsh, clean, almost judgmental. The world above. You're back. You feel the wind. You hear birds. You hear noise, laughter, phones, distant car alarms. All of it alive. But some things off. You lift your hand. It's yours. But the shadow it casts? Longer than it should be. Darker than it has any right to be at noon. You blink, and it's normal again. You breathe, but it feels like the air has to pass through something first. A filter of memory. You walk the street like always. You smile at people. You check your messages. You answer, "I'm fine." But now you notice things. Like how time clicks differently. Like how certain names feel heavier. Like how grief has a shape and you've traced it with your hands. Someone asks you later, "Have you changed?" And you just say, "A little," because you can't explain how you walked through the kingdom of the dead and came back more alive. You can't explain the locked room, the garden, the cake, the chair, the whisper, the weight. But you carry all of it, quietly, gently, like Hades does. And sometimes, when the world gets too loud, you sit still. You let the silence rise around you. You listen for the rhythm beneath the noise. Because now you know, not all descent is a fall. Not all darkness is cruel. Not all gods want to be worshipped. Some just want to be understood. And you? You're still walking. But part of you, the part that understands patience, stillness, grief, and order, remains. Somewhere below, seated in a throne made of quiet. Watching, holding, remembering. The underworld never closes behind you. It just waits. And if one day you return, you'll find your shadow already there. End of story. Sweet dreams.